Well, Marc, welcome. We appreciate you coming out, chatting with us. Just kind of want to talk through some things from your perspective as far as leadership goes, life goes, things like that. So, we met at OTS, had a pretty good time there. It was kind of crazy, but I enjoyed it. Had some good memories there. And I'm going to be interviewing leaders in different positions, whether that's in the service or CEOs or folks that, drive buses, the gamut, just to kind of share some perspective, gain some perspective, and share it with our folks at home. So I appreciate you for that. Thanks. Welcome.
Yeah, honored, man.
If you don't mind, I just want to kind of turn the floor over to you. What makes Marc, Marc?
All right. I'm Marc, captain, special tactics officer, approaching 21 years in service, faster than I ever thought I would. I've been really fortunate in my career. I started off, like you, enlisted for 12 years as a combat controller. There was a point where I continually wanted to be a leader and lead in the community. And so I put together a package, trained for an assessment, and I got picked up.
Nice.
It's been a wild ride as a combat controller. First duty station was in Okinawa, Japan. Very rewarding opportunity to kind of get out and work with partner nations, everyone from folks in Korea all the way down to Australia and all the different countries in between. Something that definitely takes a lot of maturity right out of the bag, and yeah, it's something I had to learn, but it was great. Building those relationships with our partners in other countries is very fulfilling. I really like that.
Nice.
Fast forward a little bit, I got stationed in North Carolina and started training up, did a deployment, and I started pretty bad. And then, throughout that whole experience, it took quite a while to recover. That's when I started to think, like, maybe this isn't something I'm going to be able to continue to do. So I, continued to hammer down on school and focus on, increasing my capabilities for, other options. And that's when I just kept being able to get better. Had some amazing therapy from folks around the world. And, very lucky to be where I'm at. I'm very blessed. And so that's kind of like what led me to becoming an officer. Right now I'm fulfilling an executive role for the Special Warfare Training Wing here at Lackland Air Force Base. It's a rewarding role. I have a really amazing team and a very, very strong community here. High trust community where, we're getting after a lot of things in innovative ways that we could not otherwise do with less trust, with less capable leaders, I should say.
Okay.
So it's been really good. The executive role is never something you ask for, and as a matter of fact, I went into it kicking and screaming. But it's been something that I've accepted, and I'm doing my best at it because as a leader, especially the more you're in the military, you have to kind of stop being selfish and stop trying to do the things you want to do and do the things you have to do. And so that's definitely a maturing thing that I've had to continue to do, especially being a prior enlisted operator. It's something we always want to do is get back to the fight, get closest to the action and be closest to the tip of the spear. But, you have to enable those people to have the right things, right, be in the right places, have the right training to kind of get after what you want to get after. So that's my story in a nutshell. I'm looking at chapter 2 right now, moving on to life after the military. Trying to take care of some lingering physical issues and just take care of myself and my family. But yeah, that's my story.
All right. Hey, well, I appreciate that. And again, I know you said you're now obviously still in the special warfare community. If you don't mind, for our folks, do you mind sharing your experiences growing up or kind of what your upbringing was like? Because, I know there's a lot of people who have misconceptions about people that come in and join our special warfare or special forces teams. Could you talk about your upbringing and see if there's any relatable things or, if you can talk about some of those things of just growing up?
Yeah. So I was raised in northeastern Ohio, kind of close to a town called Youngstown. You know, there's a lot of great folks that I grew up around. My family, in particular, is from a very, very small town. Talking no traffic light, and you know, there's a post office.
Wow.
And a few things, but it's a very small town, so less diversity, you know, than you're going to see in the military, and that was something that I was really, it was just awesome to kind of see. Like you immediately, like right off the bat, like you go into basic training and you're in a team of like 40 people from all over the country, and so, you know, I was the oldest of I think 13 or 14 cousins. And so like whenever we would get together, I was always like leading the family to do like things we probably shouldn't be doing, going out and doing dangerous stuff. But
okay.
Now I grew up far less perspective than I have now for education and capability. As an athlete, hockey player my whole life, and I finished high school as a captain for the hockey team, but I feel like now, knowing what I know, there's a lot of lessons that like I wish I had earlier. But again, that all was perspective that led to, you know, where I'm at now. I needed to have all those like hard lessons, I think, to kind of like make me who I am. For school, you know, I was like below average or at least average grades because I couldn't really connect, you know, the calculus and the different things that I was doing in school with, you know, anything real. It was something that I didn't think I would ever need. You know, in the military, when I started going back to school, it was fascinating. The statistics, the economics, you know, the aerodynamics, you know, all the different physics type things. It was fun. Like I could apply that to the job, and it actually made me better at the job. You know, one thing you never realize is like why math's important. Early on in the pipeline for me and for, you know, our students that go through, there's demolitions that you have to, you know, calculate the size of the charge and the shape and, you know, where you're going to prime it to specifically cut through a certain depth or, you know, gauge of steel. So yeah, things that gave me perspective in life was the military, and a higher need for education, continuous education.
Good. Okay. So now that we know, as far as your upbringing, you talk about your military career, and you said you were an enlisted combat controller. So what is that? To the layperson who doesn't know, to the folks at home who are just not as familiar with the specific terms, you know, what is a combat controller? And, you know, how do they fit in to the Air Force overall, you know, special warfare, special operations team?
Okay. So special warfare or Air Force special operations positions that are out there. I'll talk about 4 enlisted. Okay. You have TAC-P, special reconnaissance, pararescue, and combat control. You know, when we came in the military ages ago, it was a lot different, right? Yeah. So we got a trifold, like a little pamphlet, that had a little bit of information, some bullets. And initially, I was looking at Navy SEALs, Green Berets, you know, everything except for the Air Force.
Because that's what you hear about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what you see in the movies.
Yeah.
And it was through kind of like some suggestive reasoning from, you know, family to go look at the Air Force and check out, you know, what they have as far as, you know, ground special operations capability. And quickly I learned about combat control and specifically what they did. You know, it's very vague. Again, back in the day, you got a little pamphlet of information and you heard what your recruiter said. I'll say number one, like I know recruiters get a lot of bad rap, but like I think my recruiter was amazing because like any good leader can admit when he doesn't know a lot of information on something. The recruiter's like, I don't really know what those guys do, but they're absolutely crazy. You know, they work out all day long, they carry logs around, like, and he's like, they just do some crazy stuff and they go after the bad guys. And I was like, okay. So I learned a little bit more about it. Internet wasn't a thing. So it was kind of like luck that gave me that. I didn't really understand at the time, but our quality of life, our equipment, the things that we get to do, and the places we're placed, I still would definitely go back and not have changed my decision as far as coming in to do combat control. Same thing with pararescue. I feel closest to the pararescue and combat control communities, having kind of now blended between like direct action or precision strike and rescue operations. Those are two really cool jobs, to close with and destroy the enemy, and then bring home good people, better than anyone's ever been able to do in the history of time. That's a pretty cool thing for me. Yeah. A lot of people ask you, like, what's the day in the life? Like, what's a typical day look like to you? And then, the typical answer is like, there is no typical day in the life. Like, it's always different. It all boils down to is the same problem that all leaders face, is that it's problem solving. And for us, it's complex problem solving in a place where the people around you might be wanting to kill you. You're a young person, you're coming in, like me, like I was attracted to, a few different elements, like danger. That was one of them. I wanted to do something that was dangerous, something that was going to be high risk. It's very satisfying for me to be able to go into something that's dangerous, be successful, just like, going out on the ice when you're going to play an ice hockey game versus, a big rival. Like everybody on that team, wants to destroy you. They want to kill you. In a sense, like that's the thing I love about ice hockey, is that you got to put a tiny little puck or ball into a net that's very small. It's the same size as the goalie, and then you have 5 other people on the opposing team that want to destroy you in your efforts to do that. So danger is one of them. Adventure is another. So see the world, go all over the place. And I've absolutely been able to do that. That was another thing that really attracted me. And then be able to solve complex problems with a lot of autonomy. I think a lot of people these days, you look at your athletic like engineers, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. There's a lot of young people out there these days who are very talented in those areas, who we need to be very talented in those areas to take the fight to, emerging threats in Asia and Europe. The fight of tomorrow is going to be much, much harder than we've had to fight. And those individuals in those fields, they need to kind of understand that, like, coming in the military to do a special operations job, especially in the Air Force, or lead in special operations in the Air Force, is going to give you a lot of things. Like, number one, it's going to give you a ton of experience solving complex problems with a lot of autonomy, where there's no one going to be looking over your shoulder when you're doing the job that's going to mean the difference between life and death, and mission success or mission failure, which is going to play directly into a campaign or a theater plan. So those types of high level decisions, you're going to see that in a courtroom. Like, lawyers do that kind of thing. Stockbrokers, people who do high risk investments, like things where decisions have to be made quickly and precisely. Something we're recently trying to do is correlate the difference between like a surgeon and a special operations guy, because the surgeons sometimes are going to go into a surgery. It may be planned for 6 hours and it lasts 24 hours.
Sure.
That surgeon needs to have a high level of cognitive horsepower to be able to handle that kind of thing, to be that focused for that long. Just like a special operations guy who's going to go out on a routine combat reconnaissance patrol might find himself in a 72-hour firefight. There's no rest periods. You have to prepare people that are going to go into those types of things a certain way. And we do that in special operations. In all special operations, we do it really well in the Air Force. In the assessment and selection process, in the preparation, development, mentoring, and things we do it really well. Kind of got off on a tangent there, but
no, you're good. No, that makes sense. I did want to ask, it kind of sparked me when you were speaking about it, as far as the training goes. Now, with having those folks that are mentally prepared or being mentally prepared to have some of those, like you said, long days, a 6-hour mission might turn to a 24. For you and then other people that you've worked with or trained, is that an innate ability that, hey, you were a little bit better at that and you just, trained on it and multiplied it? Or is that something that across the board, hey, you trained to that, the special operations community trains to that level? Is there a little bit there that wasn't for you specifically? Like, yeah, I kind of just had that that mental toughness, and being here in the Air Force in combat control and through my training, it kind of amplified that. Or somebody who maybe wasn't as mentally tough, are they built up to that standard? I guess from your experience.
Yeah, that's a great question. So in our marketing efforts, we have a lot of folks working very, very hard. But one of the things that's missed is, the cognitive piece. The thing you just hit on is something that's going to mean the difference between, continue to push yourself or just being like, this isn't for me. Like, I can't keep doing this. Because what you'll be expected of right off the bat is it's pretty stressful. It's pretty hard.
Sure.
There's test anxiety. You go in to take a test, and sometimes people do much more poorly on those tests because of that anxiety. It's the same thing in a physical sense. There's been individuals over the years where I'll give them a physical fitness test for our jobs to assess or to get the green light to come in, and they do poorly on the reps. They do very bad. It's absolutely below their capability levels, but they have this anxiety on their shoulders. And so, the anxiety comes from a lot of different places. It could come from, different things that stress you, your past, all these different things, all these different variables that we can't control. As long as you acknowledge that, you're good. That's step one. Step two is conditioning yourself for that stress, inoculating yourself to that stress. It used to be called indoctrination, like indoc, where we would indoctrinate you into these different levels of high stress and high physical demand so that you'd be successful on the battlefield. We still have to do that. It's still the same thing. It doesn't really matter what we call it, whether it's indoc or assessment and selection or orientation. Like, these are all things that we have to do to get the individual to a certain level. Ways to prepare yourself for that, the way you deal with chaos is going to be dependent mostly on like your exposure to chaos, your past experiences. It's really hard to read a book about something like chaos and then just be like, oh, I get it. And then, you apply these things. Exposing yourself to complex scenarios where you have to lead people or be around a team and it's high stakes is going to prepare you for that. So if you're coming from an athletic background, football, basketball, hockey, any of those team sports, those are all going to lend you an upper hand because the high stakes are, your reputation, which is a big thing when you're younger.
Certainly.
Your school's reputation, you're representing something other than yourself, and you're performing at a very high level. It's going to take, cognitive horsepower and physical performance. Those are great. Now, if you don't have an athletic background, that's fine. A lot of people say like it's 90% mental, 10% physical. Like, I'll tell you right now, it's not true. It's got to be 100% physical and 100% mental.
Gotcha.
That's a little bit of my default aggressiveness coming out.
All right.
But you don't have the option to just have high level of like cognitive horsepower or ability. We need that, but we also need physical fitness to be automatic. So like when you're executing operations and you're doing missions and you're doing the pipeline, you should be able to meet the standards on any given day. If you're having a bad day, if you're sick, if you're sore, you're tired, you're hungry, whatever, like none of those factors will affect your baseline, which should be, the standards. So preparing yourself to exceed the standards before you come in is going to help you. But also understand like, it takes a few things to be successful. This goes back to Chief Gaylor. He told me this, graduating NCOA. You need 4 things to be successful. First one's aptitude, physical, mental capability. Second one's attitude, the difference between right and wrong, good and bad. And then, are you an asset or are you a liability? Third one's motivation. Motivation is yours. Doesn't matter what it is. It could be, you're doing it for your mom and dad, or you're doing it because you want to kill bad people. Motivation is yours. You got to have it all the time. And then the beauty of this whole paradigm he has is You have those first three, the fourth one comes automatically, and that's opportunity. Meet standards, see the recruiters, and if you're coming in, you're going to continually be given opportunities. So best thing to do is focus on those first three things. Okay. Aptitude, attitude, motivation. You'll keep getting those opportunities. And I think that's true with life.
Yeah. Okay, good. No, I appreciate it. And Chief Gaylor, super highly respected. Everybody quotes him. Not saying it's cliche. It's not, because he definitely shared some great info. And I kind of say the same thing to my folks. You know, if you are preparing and ready to go, even if you're having a bad day, those opportunities present themselves. You'll be ready for them. So similar, you know, what you said as far as your baseline goes. If we're talking just physical, you know, just being ready at all times, I think is important. And you need that, because they could call you right now and you have to get on a plane and go somewhere and do some things.
I'm not cool anymore.
No, yeah, you are. Yeah, you are.
I can dream about those times.
We'll just act like it. No. So, you know, you talked about like high stress situations, you know, being prepared for them. Can you share, or would you mind sharing, you know, high stress situations that you've encountered as far as, you know, maybe here stateside? I know you did quite a bit of time overseas in different countries. You know, not going into specifics, obviously, for security reasons, but can you talk about a stressful situation you've endured, you know, if you've had to overcome it, and then leadership lessons that you used during that time and or learned about that scenario or scenarios?
Yeah. So I'll take a minute to kind of think about that, and then why I think about like the specific scenario. Like I could say that like leadership's the thing that makes the difference, right? Mm-hmm. So, you know, attitude reflects leadership. It's absolutely true. And so your high functioning teams, those are teams that, you know, those leaders have established a certain culture. That culture has been solidified. It's been massaged. It's real. And it's not something that can happen like right off the bat. Like you sign in, you know, put your little name next to like, I'm bought into this culture. Like it takes time. It takes a lot of work from a leader to kind of like build that trust and have his team understand that it's a high trust environment. Like you're not going to get roasted at the stake if you make a little mistake. And so, you know, chaotic scenarios like, you know, a number of years ago, I was helping stand up the special warfare training group from a squadron to a group, and now we're a wing. But this has all happened very quickly, and there were different policies and procedures that we had in place. Yeah, we've come a long way, but a tragedy that happened like actually pretty soon after OTS was we had a student come into the command section, demand to see the commander, and then shoot the commander. The way that ended up playing out is the student ended up taking their life afterwards. But that was a you know, high risk scenario in peacetime that sure. You know, I don't think anybody's really prepared for. You know, when we go to war, you know, we're ready. Like you're at war, especially the way we do things. Like the understanding, the economics of war is very real. But when you're at home, you never expect that kind of thing. Active shooter scenarios have happened quite a bit over the years, and that's something that nobody expected. Both from a personal side of things, because you know that individual that that got shot, the consequences and the tragedy that resulted from that. But leadership lessons in that is that you come together, you pull your team together, and then you from there on out are intrusively invasive almost with like your people. That doesn't come from disingenuine or kind of like just like, hey, you doing okay? You need anything? Hey, just let me know if you need anything. Like
doesn't work.
Yeah. Like I say it all the time and I catch myself. I'm like, no, hey, seriously, like how's this going?
Are you
this
doing,
yeah, follow up on different things, and that comes from knowing your people. Mm-hmm. So it's something I've tried to do. Like if you're on my team, like I've had a conversation with you, I know what your 5-year plan is. Like I know where you want to go after the position you are with me, and I know where you want to go, long term. And that could change a million different times. But if I know those things, I know I need to tee you up for these awards. I need to tee you up for this training so that you could get to that thing. Because at the end of the day, at the end of the assignment, or when individuals really wanting to do something and they come to you and you're their leader and you're like, okay, you're an awesome person. I know you're an awesome person. And then you as the leader try to go advocate for your individual. You have nothing other than your word, which like you're their leader, but like you have no quantifiable data or information to kind of like set that person up for success. It's something that I've learned from great leaders of mine who have done those exact things. Day one, having real conversations, and then continuing to massage that relationship between leader and subordinate, and then fostering like a servant leader mentality, but fostering like a high trust scenario or team. So I think the latent era would be not having that level of leadership and not having those solid cultures prior to chaos entering your life or the team's life. Those have been the things that have made the biggest difference for me. Having good leaders in those situations are kind of probably what has kept me sane, and it's something that has definitely been something I'm striving to continually achieve with the people that I'm in charge of.
Yeah, and I you hit on it, but briefly, it is a more genuine piece. I know a lot of folks that come around and say, "Hey, how's it going?" "Okay, good." Before you can even answer, they're walking away. And that's not, again, with the disingenuous, they're checking a box to say, "Hey, yep, I asked Mark how he's doing, and I kept rolling." I've been in organizations where, as an officer, I walk around and people are giving me funny looks. I'm like, "Hey, how's it going? What's up?" And they're like, "Good, sir. Can we help you?" Like, "No, I'm just saying good morning. I don't need anything from you. It's not a veiled, 'Hey, how's it going? And here's some work you owe me.'" And sure, sometimes it is about work. Sometimes I say, "Hey, I need this and this," but other times it's fine. Like it really is, "Hey, how's your family? How's your son? How's the soccer? How's your daughter's recital?" Whatever the case may be. And it took a couple of months for people to be like, "Oh, okay, he really is just coming to say hey." And it's not to be the hero in the story. It's just that I think that they weren't used to it. Some of these organizations, it's not that. Especially in certain positions, folks, you hardly ever see them, and when you do, it's trouble. It's like, "Oh no, if so and so's coming up here, we screwed something up."
Yeah.
And
always showing up when bad things are
yeah,
happening.
and it doesn't have to be that way. But again, that doesn't prepare the team, like you said, with when the chaos comes. If that dynamic is not built, now all of a sudden I'm trying to be super leader and take charge of the team, and I don't know them and they don't know me. And that's kind of one of those, that's a foul on all fronts, but more specifically on the leadership, and not building up that culture of trust and being genuine with your people. So, talking about the team building and trust along those lines and leadership, I do like to share, leadership with the folks watching. In your experience, for you, what is something that you've learned that's been a leadership lesson that you would say, "Hey, this was my aha moment," or "This was my light bulb," or, if there were one or two times where things really clicked from you leading and being led?
There's so many different things that get hit on there, but I'd say one of the most important things to me was always like rapport. Okay. So as a young guy on team or like a leader now, something that's like I feel like helped is establishing rapport. So you do that a lot of different ways. Like it's a lot more than a pizza party. Like you just buy pizza for like lunch and stuff, and it's like you expect this great rapport, and people are like, like I don't need you to buy pizza. Like I don't need you to stock the fridge of team rooms. Like stock the fridge full of beer. What really is going to matter is like when they really need something. So a lot of people in the military, like one of the hardest things is moving around. Continuous PCSing for me is like super hard, and especially with a lot of our even young folks, they're married to other professionals. There's no single family incomes or there's far less single family incomes these days, just because things have become so expensive. So the majority of people are going to have a significant other who works, who is also a professional. It's much harder to move around with two professionals. In the special operations community, like it's real hard because they move us around and we have only a few amount of places we can go, and it's always you got to go. We need you at this place or that place.
Mm-hmm.
And something that I think I've done in the past that's helped build rapport, but also just taking care of my people is working with the senior enlisted leaders of the units that I've been a part of to, preemptively build, packages or get that individual where they need to be or where they want to be. If it's impossible, like, be upfront with your individuals, but take care of your people. Yeah. And that's something that I feel like has happened with me. In a lot of cases, I feel like I've been taken care of for the majority of my career, especially as an enlisted person. My leaders were unbelievable in, number one, explaining things to a junior NCO about where I could go or can't go and why. But they've been very transparent. Taking care of your people and transparency are two things that kind of like stand out.
Okay. Along the vein of standout leaders, who would you say, you don't have to name their name, but if there's a person in your mind, and when you think of somebody that you personally know or have met and say, hey, this person is a standout leader, or they are kind of the, not that you look to one person because you have, a lot of folks and there's a lot of influences, but if somebody says, hey, talk to me about your best leader that you've worked with, and again, you don't need to name names, just what are some of their qualities or some experience you've had with that person that makes them like, hey, this is the guy or gal?
So there are a lot of, like you said, I've been around a lot of really great leaders in my time, and like I said, they've looked after me in a sense that, like, you're kind of like mentoring the people who work directly underneath you, especially your senior enlisted leaders. As an officer, like, you got to know them. You got to know what their needs are, what their challenges are, and what their strengths are. So, and able to lead them where would be best for them. Knowing those things is a good thing. I don't think I've always done that. I think these are things that, like, have come with time. Transparency is very good, like I said, and that's an attribute or a trait that I've really grown to like, especially in the leaders that I have now. Mm-hmm. But on that note, like, full transparency all the time with everyone on the team doesn't work. Okay. So there's like a degree in which you can be transparent, and that's where the relationship between the senior enlisted leader and the officer comes into play. The senior enlisted leader, is the hammer. They sometimes call it like the mom and dad relationship. Yeah. And I like to tell myself, like, no, it doesn't have to be the mom and dad relationship, because I was also an enlisted guy.
Yeah.
I can't play that role.
It's tough it's tough to navigate.
Good for instance is, like, I can't inject myself into a scenario that may have to do with, like, professionalism or, success or whatever on the team, where I want to inject myself immediately because I want to fix something, and I'm going to be very passionate about it. And I'm going to be transparent, and some leaders will kind of use the transparency thing as I'm just being transparent with you. Well, when it comes from the officer, it's a lot different. And I probably made that mistake before.
Same.
Where, like, I fly off the handle. I expect the people on my team to know that I'm not being emotional to them personally. I'm being emotional to the scenario, and I have no plans of, like, roasting the individual and, like, getting them fired or moved off the team. It's just I'm passionate about the scenario, and you can do that. You take good examples of very passionate leaders, and you think of them. They're only able to do that if they're in a high trust environment, because one quick way to degrade your rapport with your team is to kind of fly off the handle over something. That's going to be the senior enlisted person's job, where they can be hard and they can be real with a team. As the officer, you need to be supportive. You need to be there for your team, and kind of let the STL do those kinds of things. A couple poor qualities I can say I've seen is micromanagement. And then, a lot of real poor leaders out there will justify this as like a trust but verify. So in their minds, they're saying, well, I trust you, but I'm just verifying. One good example is like if you have somebody writing an award package, or if you have somebody completing any task, be very specific, or as specific as you need to or as you expect for them to complete their section of that before it gets passed to you to sign, whether it be a mission plan or ORM or that kind of thing. Be very specific on what your expectations are as a leader. But like when you get that product, if it's not meeting your expectations, the first thing you should do as a leader is say, what could I have done better to give them better expectations? Yeah. Like poor leadership in my experience is like, now that leader just wants you to come in their office at 5:30
for sure
at the end of the day, and they want to literally have you just look over their shoulder and watch them do all the corrections and fix all these little things so they could mentor you and show you how it goes. And it's
how smart they are.
That's number one. Bleeding into family time, like you got to let your people decompress. That's right. There's gonna be times where you're at work late. There's gonna be times where it's like required and it's just necessary. That's not one of those things. You ask yourself, like, is this something we have to do tonight, or is this something that can wait till tomorrow? But yeah, trust but verify, absolutely applicable to leadership. But when it comes to intent and making sure people are doing your things, I try not to do that because I've experienced it, and it's not because people are trying to be bad leaders or any of these different things. There's a philosophical razor. I think it's called Hanlon's razor. Are you familiar? It says, never attribute to malice what is most likely explained by stupidity or ignorance.
I've heard that. Yeah, I've heard that before.
Yeah, so that, you think of that, and it's like they're not trying to be a bad leader.
Certainly.
And sometimes there's a lot of cases where you have to like lead up. You have to lead up as an airman, talking to your captain or your lieutenant, especially in those developmental stages, like for lieutenants and even captains. Leading up's a big deal, but then also as an officer, like leading up to your majors, your lieutenant colonels, depending on where you're at, establishing rapport, maintaining a high trust environment, and then being real with them. That's going to help them a million times better than just being yes sir, oh yes sir. Like you're not a number, you're an asset, and you need to be an asset. When you see something, be professional, but point it out.
Yeah. No, and going back, we talking about the relationship between our NCOs, our senior NCOs, and our officers. Same thing for me, because I found myself, especially so, I also did 12 years on the enlisted side. So I had to actively, change my behavior, because again, when I crossed over, I was very much in execution mode. As an enlisted member, very much just the doer, the hammer, if you will, like you said. And coming over as the officer now, understanding that, hey, that's not my role. Not because I can't do it, not because I'm bad at it, but because, again, we all have our roles and responsibilities. But what I didn't want to do, and this is how I kind of tricked my mind, is I didn't want to take that experience away from my NCOs or from my senior NCOs to say, hey, look, because if I'm doing it, they're not getting the reps. So that is one thing that I had the same struggle of, like, hey man, let's just do it. We're getting it done. This is our task, this, and this. And I got my NCOs looking like, hey, this is, all right, I guess we're doing it that way. So kind of had to pump my brakes. And that does take time. It is, because it's a shift, I think. And it's not a complete shift, because I don't think I'll ever lose all of that stuff. We just don't. But I agree that it is one of those things that you actively have to practice to say, hey, hold on, I'm in this new role. Let my NCOs do what they're supposed to do. And then the leading up thing, I think, is important. But as leaders, on both sides of it, you have to be open to that. And that really, like you said, it boils down to that rapport and having that relationship, because I've got relationships with some senior officers where I can lead up and say, hey, sir, ma'am, we got to remember, this, or this. Or they're saying, hey, I'm looking at doing these things. Hold on, have you considered the impact to these two areas? Oh, shoot, I didn't think about that. Yeah. And that's where I think having some of that enlisted perspective helps, because you really do look at it from, ground up. I came in as an E1, so no stripes, no rank, all the way up through the ranks. So I think as leaders, being able to lead up and then being able to be led by those folks that maybe don't outrank you, but their input is just as valid, or their concerns. And then if they're off, then you can explain, hey, yeah, here's why we can't, because I'm tracking these other things that you're not tracking maybe, or that maybe aren't even at your level. And it's not a I'm better than you or higher than you thing. It's just a, hey, I'm privy to some of these discussions, and this is why we're moving out this way. So on both ends, leading up and leading down, and then having that rapport, that was good. I appreciate that. Now, I guess along the same veins, if we're talking about leadership, you had mentioned family time. That's something that I think all of us value. I mean, everybody that has a family should value that. I'm hoping. Having leaders that value family time is important. But to your family, let's say for you being in Air Force Special Operations, how do you think that has affected your family? I know you had talked about the moves and those things like that, but overarching picture from your family that maybe doesn't know what you do, or if they do, how's that dynamic? Has there been a shift in your family, the way you interact with them, whether in your immediate household or extended family?
So the family piece is it's imperative. Number one, it's where you reside. It's your home team. That's your headquarters. When you're done doing your job. So like when you're working, be working. When you're at home, be at home. A few times probably in my career, those bleed over. If you're having problems at work, and I think this is in any leadership position or enlisted position, it doesn't matter. Like, be transparent. That's something that I don't think I was as good at. But be transparent with your loved one whenever you go back home. It's a lot easier for them to empathize, I think. Doesn't mean they're always going to. At least give them the ability to understand what you're dealing with. You don't have to give them details.
Sure.
They probably don't want them anyway. But when you go home and you're having problem at work or whatever, you're being annoyed, like being transparent is probably going to be something that's good. Sometimes you don't always want to share that though. So maybe find a way to kind of let them know, like, hey, like I had a bad day today. Just let me know what I got to do. Like, you want me to put the kids to bed, or watch this stuff? Cool. I'm going to do that. Like, and then you get your mind off it as much as you can. But the family stuff as a leader is a big deal, because it's just a lot of times, like, in the military where, especially as like a young enlisted person, you're there at work and you're like, what are we doing right now? Like, efficiencies, right? Sure. Efficiency of time. Nobody wants to just be sitting around waiting because like someone needs to decide on something or figure something out so that you can do it. It's like, be quick. Like, your thinking time should not be during the day while they're waiting for you to come up with your decision or your intent so they can execute it. Like, sometimes that means as a leader, you got to get there, before everybody else, so you can kind of like map that out and plan that out, and in whatever capacity you might have to do, like in your job. And then when they get to work, they're executing. They're doing the things they need to do. They're getting feedback. They're getting intent. And then when it's done, you provide the hot wash, whatever you got to do, but then get them home. Let them move on to other priorities of work. So that could be like a single person going back and using like healthy decompressive things that they do, a hobby, a sport, whatever. But you're married folks, you probably have like a million different things going on. So get your people engaged soon, wrap things up, and then get them home. There's going to be way more times where we're probably using people more than we need to. Something later in my career, I think, was more apparent. But when you're at work, be at work. When you're at home, be at home.
That's good. That's good advice. And you had talked about, if we can talk briefly, healthy decompression. Obviously, that helps. I know there's folks out there who struggle with unhealthy ways that they cope and deal with stress, specifically within Air Force Special Operations. And your experience, I'm sure you've seen both sides of that. for the folks that are having a difficult time, who maybe have seen some combat related things or things like that, how are those things handled? Obviously, leadership takes care of their people, but can you share some examples maybe, and again, it doesn't, no names, but of folks who may have been struggling or dealing with certain things, and how they're assisted in the Air Force, in the military, and in special operations, just kind of examples.
I won't talk about, any of my folks, but
Sure.
like I'll talk, personally, like on my level of, things I've dealt with and things I've been through. It's a healthy amount of chaos. And as macho you might kind of like consider yourself, especially as a young person,
Yeah.
like I'm fine, I got it.
Yeah.
I'm really good at compartmentalizing and coping. So I could hide and cope with things really well, like on a professional level. Super unhealthy. So like, especially like I mentioned, there's an element of risk in slowing down. And so as I come close to like the end of my time in the military, coping mechanisms, number one, you start to lose those because you're dealing with other things that you're having to cope with. And there's only so much room in the garage. So, unpacking some of that stuff is not going to happen quickly. But one of the beautiful things about, being in the military these days is you have resources that people in the military in the past have not. So the POTF initiatives or preservation of family and force. You have psychologists, you have therapists, you have social workers, chaplains, a number of people to help sharpen the saw at units in special operations, to number one, maintain your readiness, but cradle to grave, not turn a human into a big pile of mush by the end of their career. And they get out and they have realized that you completely identify with the things you used to do, and you don't know who you are as a human. So it's something like I deal with. It's something I'm dealing with. Full transparency, like I seek help. There's a number of like mental programs that you can get into that'll help you with those things, and like it has nothing to do with your capabilities or your tolerance. Like at some point you got to decompress and you have to unpack those things. I think one of the things about our young folks now is that they have these resources, they learn about them really early on in their career field. They should utilize that. They should do that from the beginning, so that just like physically, we're teaching people to be more symmetrical with their fitness, far less like shoulder, hip, or like core issues or musculoskeletal issues. We're able to keep them healthier, cradle to grave or cradle to retirement, and then life after retirement. Their bodies aren't completely broken down. There's a cognitive piece in that. There's a mental piece in that. Your spiritual and mental well-being is a strong leg of your table. So my biggest thing on that is just seek help, seek it often, and seek it early, because the longer you wait, the worse it gets, and no one is impervious to it, no matter what you think.
Yeah, no, and I agree. And I'll use my scenario. Same thing as far as seeking that help. I think it is way more prevalent now than it used to be, and encouraged and highlighted. I've had, when I first, when we first came in, those guys were in the thick of it, and it was just like, nope, we don't talk about it, we don't deal with it, we just go do our jobs, we come home, we have, we drink and have parties, and we're fine. My first tour to Iraq was 2004, and I'm not special operations, so I'm not going to claim any of those things, but we were out doing our thing in Iraq and in security forces, and it was it was our tour. We get back, and none of my NCOs were like, hey guys, how you feeling? Double checking, hey, make sure, we brought this person in to have a chat. It just wasn't a thing, and it wasn't highly encouraged. And I'm not dogging security forces. I had a great time doing that. But I think culturally it wasn't as accepted. Some of the older heads that had been through whatever they'd been through, It was like, nope, they deal with it. They compartmentalize. They have their coping, whatever they do at the house, and they didn't really seek help. And then they're out the door. It's kind of like that. Their identity is, oh, who am I? I've been go 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 for the last X amount of years, and now I don't have a thing to do or a place to be or a time to be there. So I agree with that as leaders. Making sure we're encouraging our folks, we're supporting our folks. To seek those. Great that they're even doing it on the other side as far as having some in-house representatives or helping agencies with certain organizations on the non-special operations side, bringing those people in and maybe saying, hey, for example, this is the chaplain for this unit, or this is the psychologist for these 2 units, to make it just a little bit easier for access, and it is a lot more accessible than before. Technology is part of it, but also I think culture shift of, hey, we are realizing that these folks do need that help, and that this is a real thing. They're not just a complainer or a guy trying to sham. Are there those people around? Sure. But I think all in all, it's good to get our folks to those agencies and get them the help they need. So I'm with you on that. I do the same thing. You got to take care of yourself mentally, physically, spiritually, all of that. So shifting gears some, heroes. Do you have a hero in your life, and why?
So, yeah, like, you think about retirement, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like, you're wrapping up essentially what you've done for more than half your life. And, for me, like, the first thing that comes to mind is like, who are my heroes? Um, there's like a list. And these are people that were leaders I needed to be my leaders at the time they were my leaders.
Mm-hmm.
They've gotten me where I needed to be, to do the things I wanted to do, so I can go after and be successful at the things that have got me to be where I'm at. Besides leaders, like absolute heroes, would be the guy that saved my life. He was an 18 Delta on my team in Afghanistan in 2009, and yeah, he saved my life. 18 Deltas, Army Special Forces, like medic.
Got it.
It's hard to call them medics. They're essentially like field surgeons. The types of
For
things
sure.
they can do, the types of things pararescue can do, those are at very, very high levels. Combat life saving.
Incredible. Yeah.
In the middle of a firefight.
Got it.
So, yeah, we're on a mission, and I was blown up by an IED, and immediately I was knocked out. I had a pretty bad traumatic brain injury, and so the 18 Delta that was on my team, his name was Reggie. He was in the vehicle behind me, and he saw kind of where I was thrown, and immediately ran to that position. Meanwhile, we're in a firefight, and then my vehicle's on fire, which besides the gas canisters that were on the side of the Humvee, the Carl Gustavs, the C4, and all the different rounds of ammunition we had in there, they started cooking off. And they're just going all over the place, and it's kind of like a scary fireworks display.
Yeah.
He ran up there, got me, moved me, and started performing care on me. And he was able to kind of bring me back, and he saved my life. He stabilized my body and everything, and took care of me until the helicopter was able to get there. And then they medevaced me. So he's probably, I'd say, my biggest hero. And he's an absolutely unbelievable man. The thing about him is that it was Christmas 2010, the following year, he ended up taking his own life. And that's been something that's been really hard for me. It's hard for me because we had met up and we hung out and we done a bunch of things after all that had happened, but he's going through a whole lot. He had seen a whole lot. He'd seen a whole lot in just the rotation that I was with and attached to his team.
I'm sure, yeah.
And there are a number of individuals from that team who have suffered mentally because of some of the stuff that we saw and some of the things that we were exposed to. knowing what I know now, like about intrusive or invasive leadership, and knowing your people, I probably would have been more invasive or more intrusive about, how's he doing, what's he up to, because those are your heroes, right? And it's the same thing with leaders in other scenarios where it may not be like a he saved my life in combat type thing. Like there's still other stresses. Stress comes from all different places. Anxiety, just like the test anxiety, comes from all different places, and everyone's carrying a load. Everyone's going through something, and we kind of forget that sometimes. We think that like my leader is unbelievable, like he's Superman or Superwoman. They're good, like, and so they're the ones always checking on other people, which is good. But like, who's checking on them? Like so being invasive up and down is a big thing. That it's a lesson I've learned. It's something that I'll continually do in corporate America or the military for however long I'm still in the military. Yeah, it's a lesson that I've learned. It's because of my hero, and so yeah.
Okay. All right. So, you shared your hero. So I'm really sorry to hear about, genuinely about him passing. Obviously, we all have some similar stories. I know some guys who did the same thing. And there's always that, what could I have done better? And there's folks that are really well taken care of, but we just don't know. We don't know. We don't know what people deal with. We don't know their thoughts or what resides in their heads. So again, really sorry to hear that. You had talked about some of your, I guess some of your combat scenario things. Not to dive too much deeper into it, but after you had gotten blown up, my understanding is you don't remember any of that time after that, right?
Yeah, it was weird. Like my final memory was I was in a combat scenario. We were doing a combat reconnaissance patrol on a mission, and then it was lights out.
Yeah.
And then fast forward a couple days, I woke up in a white hospital room in Germany.
Nice.
Immediately I didn't know exactly what happened, but I kind of knew something bad happened.
Yeah.
And I was still alive. And so like reality sets in, gradually after that, but that's something that's definitely hard to deal with. There's a lot of people that have had to deal with it, who, you overcome those different things. And that's something that I think is, silver lining to that is it's made me a pretty resilient, person when it comes to chaos. Things will still affect me, but it's like nothing really in my life is compared to that yet.
Okay.
And I hope I don't ever have to see that.
Yeah, for
but
sure.
It's something that like I said, it's given me perspective.
Okay. The process of coming back to that, because there's, you probably know, I know guys on both sides of that. I know some folks that got hurt and they're not able to continue, and or they're medically separated, retired, or they're cross-trained because they just can't do it. So in your case specifically, I'm sure that because of your resilience and support you received, what was that? If you can summarize the process of coming back from that, kind of what your outlook was, because I'm sure at different stages it probably was different things. Coming back from that and then to where you are now, where even after that you pursue a commission, you get commissioned, you're a special tactics officer. So can you kind of talk through maybe the bounce back and ways that your leaders and family supported you on this road?
Yeah. So initially when this happened, like I wasn't aware of it, but my leader, my commander at the time, like he wanted me medevaced from Afghanistan to Germany as fast as possible. Germany is a higher level of medical care, just for the different various reasons. And there wasn't an aircraft to get me back very soon, I should say. So he called Air Force Special Operations Command, who coordinated with Special Operations Command in general and different flying units, and they got a C-130 to get to Afghanistan. What I understand is really quickly, and then they littered up with myself and a lot of other patients that needed to get to Germany, and he got me there faster. Like that's not something that like most lieutenant colonels can do, just like with a phone call. But it's something that he did he was very aggressive about taking care of his people. And he was the exact leader I needed at the time. But yeah, those types of really bold moves from leaders have been things that have resonated with me throughout my whole career. And thankfully, I've been, when I'm in a place in need, like I've been able to, have those people there to fight for me. And that's definitely something I've tried to emulate when I recognize that there's somebody that really needs something, or before they're going to really need something, trying to look around corners. Setting your people up for success is just something you got to do as a leader.
Yeah, and paying it forward. And it's not to get anything in return. I just had this conversation the other day with a guy at work. It's taking care of folks that can't do anything for you in that sense. It's not a give and take. It's just taking care of your people, because it's not like, well, Mark can't do anything for me, so now I'll take care of the next guy. No, it's, we got to take care of our folks, even if we know that we'll never see any payback, and that's just good leadership. It's not about getting a payback, because the payback is taking care of one of our folks. Payback is getting you to Germany to get you help and get you rehabbed, and I'm sure that's how he felt. After the incident happened, did you think you'd be coming back into special operations, or was there some gray, or was there like, you don't care, I'm gonna figure it out?
I had no idea. Initial thoughts are like, well, I'm never jumping and diving again. Okay. And then it was like, oh shoot, I better get good at something else, because this was my only plan. Yeah. And that's, it's tough, because it's like a lot of our students who come into special warfare now, their plan is to do special warfare, and a lot of them don't have a plan B, and that's okay, because I didn't have a plan B. Yeah. It was like, no, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to die trying. That's right. And so, you kind of have to shift gears. I never in a million years thought I would have to shift gears so hard, but that's again what gave me a lot of perspective for school, and continually trying to be an asset in some sense of the word. Continually trying to push yourself after something like that happens was only possible because my leaders also gave me time. Like very specifically, like my squadron command and then group and wing command would check on me regularly over the phone while I was in therapy, and I was really concerned, because I was like, this is going to take this much time. I'm working on these things. I just learned how to walk downstairs again. They're like, hey, Mark, like, you have as much time as you need. Like, there is no set time for you to have to be done with this therapy. Like, you need to do this until you feel like you have reached the level of therapy you need to before you come back. And so I was in therapy altogether, close to 18 months. And it still I wasn't at a point like where I could like get back to the job. So it took a lot of work from like therapists and personal trainers and the people that we had at our units after that to kind of like pick up the ball and like continue to run it. Mm-hmm. But it was, it was a big effort. But it was only possible because I had leaders who were like, whatever you need, like, you got the time, and whatever resource we could possibly give you, like, utilize this and just let us know what you want to do.
Yeah, I think that's important because, them giving you that time, there's a lot of leaders that say that, well, however long you need, take it, but, and then, a week later, oh, I need this, and this, and it's not about not doing the job, but it's also about proper recovery. Yeah. Because if you would have been pushed or, jumped straight in, as soon as you said, hey, I can walk downstairs, give me a pack, give me a gun and throw me in an airplane, that would have been the wrong answer. And obviously, that your leadership knows that, but I think if we take it out of the combat sense or the recovery sense, just into the day-to-day of a lot of different type of career fields, I think that leaders need to find that balance of, hey, this person actually needs these things or needs this time or needs this recovery for whatever reason, and allow them that. And it's because bringing someone back too early before whatever needs to be done is done, I think it's a hindrance to everyone. It's a hindrance to the mission. And again, it doesn't have to be direct action. It might just be, hey, the guy who's an aircraft mechanic or runs engines. Mm-hmm. I think if there's missteps there and that person's not ready to go, or let's say they're not fully trained up, and then we're like, hey, fix this. Those have implications. You know, a small crack on a plane can turn into a giant problem very quickly and very easily. So as leaders, just making sure that our folks are actually taken care of, and we have those honest discussions with them, and that they know they feel supported. Because if they don't know that they actually have real support, they might be apt to jump back in earlier. They might be apt to not finish this process, or they may be apt to not follow things through. And I think we're in your scenario. You all had that relationship, and you kind of have to. I know that there's very it's a very tight window of folks that can kind of come through and do what you all do. So I appreciate you highlighting that and just saying that you know, with the recovery time, that leaders making sure that we are good to go.
Yeah. You're right though. You're right in a big way as far as like giving people that time, because like as a leader, like you're concerned with efficiency, you're concerned with effectiveness and speed, right? Because like we're all confined by the same limiting resources of time, manpower, resources. You can't make more time. You only have so many resources, and you only have so much manpower. And it's kind of a gamble, right? Like every single person that gave me the time and the resources and the manpower to fix my body and put me back together, like that was a gamble. Like on the medical side of things, it was, I'm never going to walk really the same again. I'm definitely never going to get to do the job again. And I'm going to have two options. I'm going to have my legs fused, where they've been so damaged that osteoarthritis will be too painful to do anything with. Or I'm going to have them amputated, of which, like, I'll have more capability if I'm amputated. Those have been my two options.
That's what they gave you.
Those are my options. Yeah, that's what they gave me. That's what they told my leadership. And my leadership said, nope, he'll be fine. Like, give him this therapy, do this. And it's a gamble, man. Like, I try to put myself in those shoes, and it's like, it's going to cost money to maintain this individual, just to pay me, you know, base pay, to go to therapy every day.
Sure. And
take care of myself. Like, it's going to be a lot of resources. You know, if you look at the numbers.
Oh yeah.
So those leaders, they're my heroes, because like they could have said, you know, hey, like you're very injured, you know, we're going to put you through a medical evaluation board, of which is going to absolutely recommend me for, you know, separation from the military. I'm going to get in a VA system and a program, and they're going to, that's it. Like, my opportunity has been taken away. And the worst thing about that is, you know, it was, you know, something that happened in war. It's not something like that happens, but this happens in peacetime scenario as well.
Sure.
So, you know, very capable individual gets a motorcycle accident, boating accident. They get hit by a car. You know, chaos enters our lives so many different ways. You know, you're really going to take a gamble on whether or not you want to invest those things in this individual to give them the time to do this. I think it was a complete gamble from my leadership. I don't know how, but everything I've done since then, it's kind of been like I'm paying my fees for what they've given me. And I, you know, early on, like I got in a program, and I had the opportunity to, and I rode my bicycle across the country. It was just under 4,000 miles. It was a big thing. That was like the first thing I did that I was capable of doing something right after therapies, where I had the opportunity, and I was like, I'm going to do this. Nice. Raised a lot of money for Wounded Warriors. We talked about, you know, our experiences, and hopefully inspired some people. And then I continually try to do those things. I continually try to demonstrate, you know, capability that I only have because I was given that opportunity. Earlier this year, I was awarded the Air Force's, you know, Lance P. Sijan Award, which is the highest level leadership award, or the most prestigious leadership award you can have in the Air Force.
Nice. You beat me, by the way.
Yeah.
I was the guy for AFPC. So
I'm sorry.
You're welcome.
You're much better.
No, I'm just
Let's be honest.
No, that's awesome.
Honest.
That's legit. That's
but like,
awesome, though.
That
super prestigious award, yeah.
That, you know, number one, like right place, right time. Like my teams are unbelievable. You know, the teams that I've led here, very mature operators who are doing a much better job at assessment, selection, preparation, development of our future special operators. But like the data, the science, and all the different things that we've integrated and the things we've done here, I've had the opportunity to get involved and to do that stuff. But going back, like I would have never had the opportunity to do that if I didn't have the opportunity to recover. I'd have just been a guy in the VA, disabled and really destroyed mentally because this was the only thing I ever wanted to do. The military was made for me. Like I would have done it for far less money, but it's something that fulfilled me as a person for my whole life. And I'm looking at doing other things now, but like the military gave me the opportunity to continue to recover and then get back, and I've tried to give back as much as possible and be a good leader.
That reminded me two things. One of them, when you go back to the folks that we separate or retire that get hurt, and some of those folks do struggle with finding out who they are, finding out what they're going to bring to the table now because all they want to do has been taken away from them. So I'm glad you were able to endure and pursue, continue your career. That's awesome. The other thing I wanted to hit on, and we're going to wrap up here shortly, is for the folks at home or people that may be interested in the special warfare world or the Air Force Special Operations community specifically, where would you point them or direct them? And again, are there things that they can do besides what you talked about, obviously? Where would you point them if they say, hey, I'm hearing some of these things, it's something I've been interested in. How do I do that? How do I start?
Biggest thing, if you're interested in the special warfare career field or getting involved in the special warfare community, is go to your recruiter. Your local recruiter is going to point you in the right direction as far as websites, which will change, and the different things that are out there. But there are development programs now that will physically prepare you to come in to the course of initial entry with, again, the courses, they change their names. Things change, standards change. There's, all this attention on like, what are the standards? How many pull-ups do you need to do? How many push-ups? It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is you increase your human performance, your physical and your mental and your cognitive capability as high as you can, and you come in and you give it your all. We don't have any secrets. The standards that are continuing to come out will be published. The recruiters will know them. The developers that are out there will know them. If you're an in-service person and you want to cross-train, whether you're coming from another service or from within the Air Force, there's a lot of opportunities to do that. Speak with your senior enlisted individual, your ops soup, or your chief to kind of get that information, and then AFPC will point you in the right directions. But it's a very rewarding job, man. I think there's a lot of good jobs in the Air Force that, like I said, it gives you those abilities to solve complex problems. And then you have the autonomy to do so in a way that, you don't have someone looking over your shoulder. And you do some cool things. I'm partial to Air Force Special Warfare stuff, but the Air Force and the military is great. And if it's not for you, after 4 years, 6 years, 8 years, 14 years, like if you decide it's not for you, there's very few things, I think, and this is never captured in the recruiting, if you just wanted to come in and do 4 years. Mm-hmm. But if you come in and you do that and you decide it's not for you, like now you have something on paper that says like you have led, you have performed, you have been the action person to do this thing. And you've done it kind of on your own. You've done it to meet, your commander's intent or your leader's intent in the military. And really, man, like after special warfare, like the sky's the limit. We have people who get out. I've had guys who I've been an instructor for, and then later, team leader for, who have gotten out and now they're UFC fighters. Yeah. I have guys who've gotten out and they've become doctors. Yep. Business leaders, you name it. Like, and really, I think the reason for that is like in special warfare, you are, a lot of chaos is thrown your way and injected into your life to inoculate you to that stress, to give you the ability to perform under stress, at a high level. And I think that's one of the things that kind of like is a luxury to us. While you're going through it, it might be a pain in the ass, but it's a luxury to us because there's very few things you can do in life where you will be assessed at such a high level and you have to swallow your pride and get the feedback that we're going to give you. And there's not very many other things that you can do where you're going to get that kind of real-time feedback of whether or not, you're going to get picked up or you're not. And the people that don't get picked up, one of the things I tell them is that, it's taken quite a bit just to get to the point that they have gotten to. At varying levels, it's the same thing throughout the other jobs in the military. There are things that people in security forces have to deal with that I've never even had to deal with. Like, there are challenges that they have that, due to their limited resources, they have to still perform their mission. They're expected to do so at a very high level. It's the same thing with special operations. You're just in a more visible position sometimes. Whether or not you're working on a flight line, you're in an MPF, or you're a cop, like all the different positions that are in the military, to me, are they're pretty good. I think it's the most bang for your buck out of college or high school, to come in and get an opportunity to lead and do things that most people will never get a chance to do.
Got it. Yeah, I appreciate that, and I'm sure they do as well. If I can brag on you for just a bit, or ask you to brag on yourself, can you kind of go through the list of some of the schooling that you've been through, whether it be formal schools with our branch and other branches? That way it kind of paints a picture of some of the experience you've had. You don't need to go into detail about them, but just, some of the formal and informal schools, let's say, that you've done that other folks in in your career field or in the special operations community may go through.
Yeah. So, if you come in, I came in, you're going to go through some kind of indoctrination program, orientation, assessment, selection, you name it. But after that, you're going to start going through some basic level skills. Those are going to be your survival skills, your survival school, your basic survival. And then you're going to go to airborne school, learn how to jump out of a plane with a round parachute that you don't really steer. You just kind of turn and you hit the ground pretty hard. Yeah. But after that, you're going to go to kind of like an apprentice course, which is going to kind of bring you to like a 3-level or to a deployable status as that individual. Okay. They're going to incorporate things like land navigation, shooting, basic tactics, and the very applicable things to the job that you're going to go do. If it's a PJ, it's going to be medical stuff. Sure. Combat control, or you're going to learn how to control aircraft, do airfields, demolitions, that kind of thing. But you'll go on after apprentice courses to advanced skills training. For everyone in AFSOC side, which is your combat control or special reconnaissance and special tactics officers, you're going to go to Florida, Herbert Field, Florida. For the pararescuemen, you're going to go to Arizona, Davis Moffett Air Force Base. And you're going to get advanced skills training. So you're going to learn to jump out of airplanes from higher levels, so HALO. You're going to go to your dive schools. You're going to learn advanced communications. You're going to learn advanced land navigation. You're going to learn advanced tactics. So again, like advanced skills training. So that you can be prepared to go to your first team. When you get to your team, that's when you'll really start working. You're going to go to different schools. Depending on what job you have, you're going to go to shooting schools at least once a year. You're going to go to driving schools sometimes, so that you can learn how to handle a vehicle or any vehicle, whether it be 4-wheel drive, all-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, high center of gravity, low center of gravity. That's something that's really fun to me, but it's very applicable. We're not trying to make race car drivers. We're trying to make people very capable behind the wheel of a vehicle, because that is a move capability that's going to get them to and from work. And if you break between, start and the operation or the actual objective, now you have just become a liability. And we can't have that. You have to be able to get in and out, sometimes quickly and without being noticed. So driving schools. We have any number of different schools that prepare you to work with other countries, and then there's a lot of on-the-job training. But it's an adventure, man. It's fun. You can do some really cool things with some very very good people. I've been to a number of different training iterations for skydiving, for instance.
Yeah.
Like Halo operations, where we've worked with the Red Bull Air Force team, who are the best in the world, or some of the best in the world at skydiving. And it's like, 2 weeks of, exposure to, that high level of an athlete, it's going to make you so much more capable.
Yeah.
So when we have to go get a good guy or go after a bad guy and he's in a place where we're going to have to parachute in to conduct that operation, I want Red Bull teaching me how to do that. I want Red Bull to teach my guys how to do that. So, you take that same high level example and you apply it to any of the things that we do. It could be horseback riding. It could be dropping a boat in the middle of the ocean and then taking that to the objective. There's quite a bit. There's a lot you have to know. There's a lot you have to do to be capable and effective at, the anytime, anywhere motto that we live, or we try to live. But yeah, it's a fun job. That's my selfish plug at special warfare.
And again, it's not that. I'm just trying to help educate, and folks can see what you've done and kind of what they can expect, and or just the tons of training that they pour into you guys, because at every level, I mean, you gotta be ready to go. You gotta be ready to execute. And it sounds like they're preparing you all properly, because you kind of have to in that business. So parting words for me, I really appreciate you coming out, man. It's been great. It's always great talking to you, really, anytime. And it's just not for the cameras, you know that. I definitely appreciate it. I definitely appreciate you just sharing your story. I know sometimes it's not as easy to share things. Sometimes for different people, it's a little bit easier. And just the resilient things that you bring to the table, the resiliency for your teammates, the real world stories that you can share. I think those are important, just because there's leaders everywhere, and I say at every level. And again, I have a high level of respect for people that work at McDonald's. I have a high level of respect for people that take care of children. I have a high level of respect for people in the military, and at all levels, there are leaders and there's leadership to be learned. So I just want to say I really appreciate it. Parting gift for you: have you read the book Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey? Great book. What about Good Vibes, Good Life by Vex King?
Good Vibes, Good Life. I'll have to check that one out.
All right.
I got one for you.
All right.
You want to hear it?
Yeah.
So it's called Einstein's Boss.
Okay.
There's a lot of really good foundational leadership lessons to be learned in there. But it's a lot of like leading geniuses. A lot about leading geniuses, which I'm by no means saying like we're geniuses.
No.
We're at Einstein level, but especially these days, we have very talented people coming in the military.
Absolutely.
More than 50% of the enlisted force has bachelor's degrees. There's a large number that have masters and then also doctorates. So it's like, as an officer, you're not necessarily the smartest person in the room, but you are expected to lead the room. And so this book, it talks a lot about different things to think about. It gives you kind of like a roadmap of what to keep in the back of your head when you're leading those geniuses. And it talks a lot about like the psychology in what those people value. Einstein's Boss.
Oh,
it's a good one.
So yeah, like I said, I'll get you a copy of that book, Vex King's Good Vibes, Good Life. It's just a good. Some of it's there's a lot of left and rights in there, but it's some of it's more feely, but also I think you've got a good positive perspective, and you always bring kind of that fun to the table. I know at OTS we had a really good time. Kind of got a little bit of trouble, but nothing too crazy. But again, man, really appreciate your perspective and sharing. I think it's important across the board. We share information, because you might know some stuff that I don't know, and vice versa. And it does us no good to just keep it all in our heads, or just for me to just have this journal or whatever I have and not share it with the world. Same over here. So I really appreciate that, man. And best of luck to you as things go forward in life. I know there's a lot of changes coming down the pipe. So again, really appreciate you. Any parting words?
No. The silver lining to professional military education is that it's all about the people.
Yeah.
and leaders in those seats, you know, instructors and those kinds of things. Like I feel like earlier on when I was much younger, especially in the enlisted, you know, Airmen's Leadership School, you know, you look past that and you're not making those same connections. But like a number of individuals I've met at NCOA, OTS, SOS, these are friends that like I'm going to be friends with for the rest of my life.
That's right.
And I know, and they should know that like if they call me, like, yeah, I'm going to help them to the best of my ability. And it's all about connections, man. It's all about people. Things always boil down to a people problem. So if you can be a good leader, be a good person, you can solve really any of the problems that come at you.
Nice. Hey, well, my channel is called Restored Valor. I think you've seen it.
Check it out.
Yeah. So I'm gonna post this up for our folks. But yeah, that's all I got, man. Best of luck to you and your family as things go forward, and I'll definitely be in touch.
Yeah, man.
All right, man.